Issues and Answers will not be seen today so that we may bring you a special directions program, another in our series of bicentennial celebrations in the American spirit from ABC.
This program is about the conscience of America, which is a way of saying our sense of right and wrong. And we'll be dealing with that sense of right and wrong in the years between the Declaration of Independence and the Second World War. John D. Rockefeller said, "I believe it is my duty to make money, and still more money, and to use the money I make for the good of my fellow man, according to the dictates of my conscience." Material progress proved righteousness, and men known as inspired millionaires were in the forefront. From a handful of millionaires in the 60s, their ranks grew to 4,000 by the 1890s. Mark Twain called it the Gilded Age. There were other points of view, but the day seemed to belong to Horatio Alger.
One Horatio Alger decides the world will beat a path to the door of the man who builds a better railroad car. As railroad trips have stretched out over nights, the traveler has faced a dreary choice. Quick dinners and overnight stops at crowded railroad hotels, or sleepless nights.
Now, George Mortimer Pullman, that's who our hero is, introduces luxury to the rails. He calls them palace cars and equips each one with the hand carving and brocade you can still see in the cherry wood interior of a rare 19th century Pullman. Beds and bathroom store away. Soon the papers are calling Pullman the Prince of Railroads, and also a public benefactor, a missionary of civilization. For Pullman now turns his missionary zeal to improving the lives of his workers and his business at one stroke. Life in Chicago is grim, and Pullman is convinced this is bad for business. As he says, no question is more important to American society than that of the taste, health, and comfort among the artisan class. So Pullman quietly bought up 4,000 acres of prairie, away from the seductive city, as he called Chicago. And there he built the first planned industrial community in the United States. It was more than just another company town. It was pleasing to the eye. Pullman believed exterior respectability aids true self-respect, and he hired both an architect and a landscaper to do the job. The main factory and office buildings fronted on lakes and parks across from a hotel and large houses. The great power plant was brought in from a starring role at the Philadelphia Centennial of 1876. There was a novel arcade, something like some of today's enclosed shopping centers. The arcade had a variety of shops, a theater, and a carpeted library. They did live better. By the time Chicago opened the Columbian Exhibition in 1892, visitors came from all over the world in the thousands by day and night. Today, they come again on tours into the past.
Many important speeches were given here, including one in 1891 by Clarence Darrow on the 8-hour day. Though built to last, the structure was gutted by fire in 1892 and demolished.
Much of Pullman stands today. Some families have lived here through 4 generations. Nellie Evans went to live in Pullman in 1890 at the age of 10.
Well, I remember it was a very beautiful town, and they took very good care of it. I mean, they kept the grass cut and kept it all right up to snuff.
When what they see was at its prime, a minister said the town stands related to a question of how man should live. But Pullman saw it more simply as proof that capitalism is good for worker and owner alike. As he said, better lives for workers, 6% for owners. The town's unique Greenstone Church was a symbol of the conscience of the Gilded Age. The Episcopal Bishop of Boston had said, "In the long run, it is only to the man of morality that wealth comes. Godliness is in league with riches." Andrew Carnegie would say, quite simply, in describing the Pullman-Horatio Alger triumph, Pullman is a typical American.
What George M. Pullman was trying to do with his town was narrow the gap between worker and capitalist. But the gap was widening. A great railroad strike followed the panic of 1873. There were more than 600 strikes in 1885. They doubled in 1886 when violence flared in Chicago's Haymarket Square. By 1892, Carnegie Steel was fighting its workers at Homestead, Pennsylvania. And the panic of 1893 brought the troubles to the heart of Pullman's model town.
In that panic, railroads failed. There was a glut of cars and a dramatic drop in Pullman orders. To survive, Pullman cut his workforce from 5,000 to 1,000 at the low point, and he cut wages by as much as 50%. But he didn't cut rents. Pullman told the men he was landlord and employer. That's all there is to it. Just like any other landlord, his rents would have to stay high because the town was a business, and he expected that 6% return. It was May when they struck and closed the Pullman shops tight. Nellie Evans heard the news in school.
We was terribly surprised about our fathers being on strike, and we said if our fathers are on strike, we're on strike too, so we went back and got our books. But we went back the next day, you know. We didn't stay out long.
Eugene Victor Debs was born in 1855 in the brawling Midwest frontier town of Terre Haute, Indiana. Debs thought strikes were illegal until the bloodshed in Homestead and Haymarket changed his mind. Then the Hoosier was outraged. He organized a whole new kind of union by industry instead of craft. Everyone on the railroads could join one single American railway union. Now Debs puts the whole organization on the line to help the Pullman local. His switchmen throughout the country refuse to switch Pullman cars onto trains anywhere. The boycott spreads to 27 states, 125,000 men, 20 railroads. President Cleveland orders 2,000 federal troops to Chicago. Some camp on the lawn of Pullman's Florence Hotel. Soon, 6,000 troops are involved, 3,000 police, and 5,000 strike-breaking U.S. Marshals deputized by the railroads themselves. When they move trains, impatient mobs stop them and unhook Pullmans. Debs appeals for calm, but fighting rages on. Switches are smashed, trains burned. Finally, the troops are stoned and respond with gunfire. 4 lives are lost, 40 persons are wounded.
Oh, that strike was awful. One night they started up a train that had stopped at Kensington, and they got all the passengers off, and they opened up whatever it is they opened up on the engine, and let that train go by itself, no engineer or anything. It went in the river at the bridge down there at Riverdale. Nobody was hurt, though, because they'd got everybody off the train.
On July 10th, 6 days after the Army reached Chicago, Eugene Debs was indicted on a charge that he violated the Sherman Antitrust Act, which had been passed to break up industrial monopolies. A week later, he was jailed on another matter for contempt and violation of an injunction against the strike. 24 hours later, the Pullman shops reopened. The Army left Chicago 2 days after that. George M. Pullman had won the strike. Eugene V. Debs had lost the strike. Many things that our Bill of Rights had promised were not delivered during the years between, but many were. And they were because of some mighty, courageous yous and me's who felt they were right when just about everybody else felt they were dead wrong. And they stood up to be counted, even when they had to go to jail, even when they had to fight, even when they had to die.